put the hip shit on the shelf. Cause the way the real wealth is being real itself. My eyes can see the glory of the coming of the left. I can do it by myself, so I'm asking for help. It's time to switch it up, put the hip shit on the shelf. Cause the way the real wealth is being real itself. My eyes can see the glory of the coming of the left. I can do it by myself, so I'm asking for help.
Money, money, money. All you got is money. Being wealthy. Like Kanye West says, having money is not everything, not having it is. No, Deuteronomy 8:18, that God gives us the ability to create wealth. No, it's the love of money that's the root. You don't like money so much, why you get up and go to work? Yeah, I like to do it. I'm just trying to leave a legacy for money. It's not everything, but when you got it, you can do some cool stuff. Now, your host for Talking Money in the Morning, financial health mentor to the working class, Mr. Cortez.
Good morning, Black world, and welcome to Talking Money in the Morning Live with your main man, Ace Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the Black community, everybody's favorite fatherpreneur, coming to you live and direct from the Black Wealth Movement Studios here in St. Louis, Missouri. Guys, if you are not already down with the Black Wealth Movement, we need your help. The Black Wealth Movement is a network of brothers and sisters all across the country committed to bringing financial literacy to the Black community. It is our opinion that financial literacy and conquering money is like the final frontier for Black people in this country. And we want to help you do that. We teach wealth building principles in 5-6 core areas, from entrepreneurship, taxes, debt elimination, credit, investing, and asset protection. So you have to learn those pillars if you're going to build generational wealth. And if we all focus on that, make some tough sacrifices, and this generation, the next generation, can build on that foundation, and our grandchildren will have it made. So if you're interested in the Black Wealth Movement, all you got to do is go to moreinfo.joincorteznow.com or text me at 314-874-6887. If you text the keyword Black Wealth Movement, I'll get you some information, or we can chat about what the Black Wealth Movement is and what it is not. Do me a huge favor, guys. If you're checking us out on YouTube, go ahead and share the stream. Hit subscribe if you have not already subscribed to the channel. Then copy the link and share it on your favorite social media timeline. For you guys who are checking us out on Facebook, do the same thing. If you have not already shared the stream, go ahead and hit the share button. If you have not already clicked to get notifications so you get notified every time we go live, I want you to do that as well. And that way you'll never miss an episode of Talking Money in the Morning Live, but also other live broadcasts that I do throughout the day, the retirement report, midday motivation, things of that nature. You'll get notifications when that stuff takes place. Really quickly, I'd like to let you know exactly who the show is for. In case you're new, you stumbled upon this show on accident. This show is for riders and grinders only, man. You got to be ready to get up and get out and get something. And if that's you, this is your show. This show is for legacy builders. If you are ready to build a legacy for you and your family, I promise, just listening to this show every day, you'll get some tips, some insights on how you can go about doing that. You can start connecting with the people that comment in the stream, because we are all like-minded and doing the same thing. So we might have some different strategies and some different access to some different things that can help you along that journey. On the other hand, who is the show not for? The show is not for the bump on the law, the eternal pessimist. If that is you, then we ask you kindly to exit stage left, right? If you're the type of person that's got a problem for every solution, we have a low tolerance for your type around here. If you're the type of problem who can't stand the fact that I talk about money all the time, this probably isn't a good show for you, man, because that's what I do. I talk about building wealth, and I talk about money and capitalism and that kind of stuff. So if you got anything against that stuff, then this ain't your show, man. And then lastly, I can tell you each and every morning, man, if you've never seen a future billionaire before, then I want you to take a screenshot, and watch your boy work, because it is going down. 2027, your man will be a billionaire. Ask me how I'm going to do it. Right? No, you don't, because that ain't your business. Right? Then again, it is your business, because I want to help you get there too. So do me a huge favor, share the stream if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's start working together to build some generational wealth and some legacies. Today's show, we're talking about doing for self, right? Black economic empowerment and group economics start at home. Now, I want to give you just my humbled opinion about some things that we can probably change around in our communities to change our situation for the next generation. What's going on, Hakeem? We can, there's some things that we can probably start to do a little bit differently, if you will, but it's just a matter of going against the grain in a lot of cases, man, period, right? So when I say group economics starts at home, I want you guys to think about how we have been raised. And because of how we've been raised, we're now raising our children the same way. And if we raise our children according to the way we've been raised, then they're going to raise their children the same way. And let's ask ourselves this question. And this is no disrespect to my parents, your parents, anybody's parents, your grandparents, this is no disrespect to anybody. But I want you to add, let's start thinking practically about where we are now, how we got there, and where we're trying to go, right? So this is what we're focused on. Where we are now, how we got there, and where we're trying to go is what we want to start thinking about, right? So ask yourself this question. Is the way that you were raised and where you are now, is it safe that you would, or does it make sense to raise the next generation exactly the way you were raised, if in fact you want different from your children? Let me ask you again. Ask yourself, does it make sense to raise the next generation exactly how you were raised, if you want something different for the next generation? What's up, Yvette? That's the question. See, there's no, this is not a slight to my mom, right? She raised me as a single mom, and along with my 5 other brothers and sisters. And the way I have been raised, what's up, Robert? The way I have been raised, no disrespect to my mom, I have to do something almost completely opposite of what she did if I'm going to have if I want something better and different for my children and the next generation. See, we've gotten settled into what they call a groove, right? You know how 45 and albums are pressed and made. The music is settled into the grooves, right? So the needle actually follows the same groove every single time the album is played. But what we've done is we keep getting the same results because we keep settling into the same groove. Our parents raised us a certain way, their parents raised them a certain way, and we're raising our children a certain way, and then our children's children will be raised a certain way. And here's the funny part. Here's the funny thing. We all get to a certain age and realize that we wish we'd had learned something different, but we don't get into our grandchildren's lives and teach them what we wish we had learned differently. That's the part that's mind-boggling to me. We get to a certain age now. When we are in our 20s, for the most part, we're thinking and our children are very young. We're thinking, okay, I'm going to discipline them the same way mom and dad disciplined me. I'm going to send them to school the same way mom and dad sent me to school. I'm going to do X, Y, Z the same way mom and dad did X, Y, Z. But then we get into our 40s and we start to receive some revelations and different things in different areas. And we start to think, okay, you know what? Maybe we need to do something a little bit different, right? But because the need to do something different puts us in a position where we could potentially be ostracized, we have this burning desire to start going completely against the grain. But nobody wants to be an outcast. So instead of actually doing it, we just keep thinking about it and we keep talking about it. So we're talking about group economics today and doing for self, right? What if I told you, we everybody on this stream is serious about the Black community, right? And we're talking about rebuilding it. And we're talking about building our own economy. We're talking about making sure our dollar circulates in our community. But let's ask this question. If the plan is, what's up, Kurt? If the plan is to build the Black community, how can you build a community when you're consistently and constantly dividing the community? Now, I know you're saying, Cortez, man, I'm Mr. Black Power. I'm not dividing the community. I am serious about building a community. Listen to what I'm saying. If the plan is to build the Black community, how can you build something or build the community when you're constantly dividing the community? See, we talked yesterday about, or maybe it wasn't yesterday, maybe it was the day before, about whether or not college is good for our children, whether that's the right move or is there risk involved in college. See, I have 5 sons, right? And because society has told me that when my sons get to a certain age, they should be out on their own. When my sons get to age 18, I should send them off to college. Well, if the name of the game is to build a community, how can I build the community when I'm at the same time dividing the community by sending people in the community, hands that could be on deck, away from the community? You guys following where I'm going? See, we're supposed to be rebuilding our community. So instead of putting a college in our community, we send our kids away from our communities to go to college somewhere else. We can't build a community when we're constantly dividing the community. See, my oldest son has moved out because I forced him out, because society told me that to get your grown man on, you have to go live on your own, right? See, we have to stop letting society dictate and decide for us what is right for us. See, what is my definition of power? Power is when you can define someone else's existence and have them accept that definition as if it is their own. See, other people have told us what manhood is, what womanhood is, right? So we create these relationships with our children sometimes where we can't live with one another. Because when they start getting a little grown and feeling themselves, then first thing we say is 2 grown people can't live under the same roof, so you got to go, right? But that's divisive, and therefore we can't practice group economics in our community as we can't even practice group economics in our households first. We look at other communities. We look at the Hispanic community, for instance, and we laugh and joke about them staying 13, 15, 20 deep in a single household. And we're saying, that's crazy. How do they all sleep? They don't have their own room, this, that, and the third. But what they do have is group economics. They do not have to send their kids to daycare, because while all of those folks are staying in one house, the wives are usually staying at home and they're tending to the children. You ever wonder how the Hispanic community can keep their culture while at the same time sending their kids to school? So now their kids are going to school and learning English, but at home they still speak Spanish. They still keep their culture tight because they have somebody at home at all times in charge of culture. But we laugh at that and we think that is something wrong. Something wrong with that. They can stay in, 12, there's a Hispanic family next door. And at one time there was 3 different families living in that house. 3 different families. Now guess what? All 3 of those families, because they were able to stack their cash, stack their chips, all 3 of their families have their own families, and all of them have their own businesses. And the one next door, she still runs a babysitting business where all the other families that used to live there, they all still bring their children back to her and they help her make income. She gives them a real player price on the child care services, and they are loyal to her because they understand group economics. Every morning, about 5 or 6 cars come and drop their kids off next door. All Hispanics. All Hispanics. They're practicing group economics. Group economics starts at home. What do we do? As soon as our child gets 15, 16 years old, we start hinting at threatening to put them out. Right? Because we don't understand how group economics work. Group economics starts at home, right? Group economics start at home. They don't divide their communities. They are building in their communities. You think about one of the another things that we don't do in our community is, instead of finding a need and filling the need, when we have gaps and holes in our community, instead of finding that need and saying, hey, you know what we need in our community? We need to put this kind of business here. We need to put this kind. Instead of finding a need and filling the need, we instead say, hey, we don't have any entertainment venues in our community. We don't have any movie theaters in our community. We don't have any grocery stores in our community. So instead of coming together to build those things in our community, we say we need to move to a community where those things already exist. See, that's dividing the community. We're supposed to be building it, but instead of building it, we're dividing. We look at the Middle Easterners who come in and own the gas stations and the little convenience stores in our community. And instead of saying, you know what, we're not going to keep going for this. We don't need this little convenience store. When you, I mean, let's be honest, man. You go into those little convenience stores, they nasty as hell. Instead of saying, okay, that's cool, you can have your little convenience store, you know, and that's cool if our people want to shop there, but we need a grocery store. So instead of moving out of the community to go move into a community where there is a grocery store, let's build one. We need solid school districts in our community. So instead of moving out of our communities to where there and to other communities where the school district is nice, let's make the school district nice. See, we can't build our communities if we keep dividing our communities. It's time that we start thinking differently about the way we are doing things and the way we are building if we want a certain result. We've watched what happens when the best and brightest of our talent move out of our community and into other communities. Our communities start to go down. What if the best and brightest in our communities didn't get recruited out, but they stayed in and they used their talents, their gifts, their education, their intellect to build in our community? See, group economics starts at home. It starts in the house. But are we practicing it, or are we dividing even amongst our immediate families? See, I rethink this all the time. I said, man, I got to figure out a way to get my oldest son back home, right? My other son, because the way we raised him, my oldest son was a star wrestler and he got a lot of attention. The son under him, not so much. So he lived in his brother's shadow all of his life. So he couldn't wait to bolt. So he moved to Kansas City. He's now in school in Kansas City and is living in Kansas City and wants to move from there to Texas because he's trying to create his own lane because of the way we raised him, right? Not that we were trying to do anything wrong and drive him out and ostracize him, but because we didn't have a mentorship as a family to say, hey, middle child syndrome is real. You got to be careful about how you treat the middle children and make sure that they're getting the same amount of love as the oldest and the baby, all of that kind of stuff, right? So now I've got to get him to come back home and say, you know what? You need to come back home and help me with the family business, right? My oldest son, you need to come back home and help with the family business. We're all going to, what if we did this? Instead of me buying, so I'm living in a ranch home, single family unit. What if instead of the first house I bought, What if I, instead of leveraging credit to buy a single family home, I leverage credit to buy a multi-family, maybe an 8-unit apartment building, right? You probably could spend about the same amount of money, right? And what if I did that first and we lived in one apartment as a family, right? I want to challenge your thinking in this way. And we're talking about group economics, right? And so naturally, if we live in one apartment as a family, there's 7 other units. That means other families are creating income for us and we're living rent free, right? And they're creating passive income, but we're still working. So we got that income coming in too, right? So now by the time our children are of age, 18, 19, 20 years old, we not only own this building free and clear, but instead of putting them out and sending them outside of the community, we just take, when my son gets 21 years old and he really ready to start, having female guests over all the time and all that kind of stuff, and he needs his privacy, I don't send him away to go get a place. I send him upstairs to the upstairs unit. I send him down the hall to the down the hall unit. Right? It's an 8-unit apartment complex. So now he still lives in the family property. He just lives in his own unit. Right? And then when the next one gets of age and he's ready to live on his own, he does the same thing. But guess what? Because we own this unit, there's maintenance that needs to take place on this property. So I don't give my children a job, I give them a business. So the oldest son becomes the proper property manager of the property, right? He's responsible for keeping the grass cut, keeping the lawn, getting the different maintenance crews in to fix the AC in this unit and paint this unit and all that kind of stuff. See, we have to start doing things differently if we want a different result. So now we got a couple families who still live, that's not part of our family, but then as my other sons start to get a little bit older, no, you're not going away to college. You're going to go to college somewhere here locally so that you can stay in the community that we're building, right? And now they get to live rent free because we own this building. You get your privacy. You get to set your apartment up the way you want to set it up. But this is the family estate. Right? What if we started thinking like that? And now we're saying that, hey, as you guys are growing up, I start to recognize your gifts and your talents. And I say, man, you know what? You really love to work with your hands. You're not even going to college at all. You're going straight to trade school. You're going to trade high school, and then you're going to graduate from the trade high school with an associate's degree. You're going to go do 2 more years in college and get a bachelor's degree in your trade, and you're going to go into business for yourself immediately. We're going to start a family business in HVAC. We're going to start a family business in auto mechanic, auto body, whatever, carpentry, construction. We got the money because we live rent free. So we're just able to stack and invest our money. So as soon as you graduate, you got 3 vans ready. So as soon as you graduate, you got all the equipment that you need ready. As soon as you graduate, we identified another property and we bought a multi-purpose commercial building where you got 2 bays for your auto mechanic shop, but there's also 3 other units in, because we understand group economics now. It's instead of using money to buy a single shop just for this, we're going to buy a shop that is, yes, it has room for me to operate my business, but it has 3 other offices or 3 other spaces that we can rent out to create the money. See, group economics starts at home. We have to start thinking differently about what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it if we want a different result. It might not be the best thing for us to continue to send our best and brightest talents off to live somewhere else, right? We might have to start teaching our children the benefits of spending and circulating the dollar within a single community, concentrating the dollar. See, I was sharing with my sons the other day. After church, we like to go and grab a bite to eat. Right. After that, it says you got to always solicit 1,000 of us to 1K each to start something locally. Absolutely, absolutely. That's what we're doing, Kurt. We're getting it together, brother. We're getting it together, man. We are getting it together. That's what the Black Wealth Movement is all about, man. Us really practicing group economics and challenging the way we think and the way we built our families and our own personal economies, right? So we like to go and eat after church on Sundays, and I like to try to go and find a different Black-owned restaurant because I want to introduce them to the Black-owned restaurants. I want them to, when their buddies start to say, when their buddies start to say, man, let's go out to eat after homecoming, I want them to be able to have a Rolodex of Black-owned restaurants so they can say, hey, I know y'all traditionally like to do IHOP. I know y'all like to do Denny's and stuff like that, man, but let's run over to this little spot, man, and let me turn y'all on to this spot, right? So I was sharing with them, not only does that help that local family, right, that owns that business, not only does the dollars circulate, we took the dollars that we earned, we spent them with that local restaurant, so it circulated one time, and then hopefully that restaurant is at least going to spend some of that money with another Black-owned enterprise, right? Whether hopefully their accountants are Black. Hopefully they are their marketing and their printing company that they use is Black. Hopefully they're getting their paper plates and napkins from Freedom Paper or another Black-owned establishment. Hopefully that's the case, right? But another thing that we have to start educating our children on is not just what we do with our money when we spend, why it's important too, but we have to think about the unconscious ramifications of spending our money in other places, right? Chick-fil-A's president says they don't like Black people. Why would I spend my money there if you don't even like us? Right? This is publicly on record. We don't like Black people. Now, by law, he said, I can't discriminate against them because that's the law says that it's against the law to discriminate. But you can't make me like them, right? And if that's how he feels about us and we're spending our money in a place like that, I ask my children, what do you think his money goes when it's time to support a certain politician for president? Where do you think his money goes when they're pushing local, when they're supporting their local politicians and they're electing certain judges and things of that nature? See, we have to start thinking this thing all the way through. All the way through. It's not just I want to spend with Black people. And see, and that's kind of the angle that everybody comes from. We need to start circulating our Black dollars, but let's understand why we need to start circulating. Because when you buy with other cultures, they take their money and they support the things that will benefit their culture. They support the laws that's going to pass, it's going to benefit their culture. They're going to support the politicians that are going to sit in office that's going to pass and enforce the laws that's going to benefit their culture. They're going to support the police chiefs and the police departments that are going to police in a certain way that is in alignment with the way they think and the way they feel. And for the most part, it's totally opposite to what we're trying to do. So it's not just spending your money so that we can start rebuilding our economy. When you not spend money in the other establishments, you're actually tearing down that economy. And when you tear down a community's economy, you're tearing down everything else, right? You guys know I love my brother, Dr. Claude Anderson. He talks about the 5-story building. Our first story has got to be economics. So when you start hitting a person in their pockets economically, then everything else starts to crumble, because from the economics, you take the money and you buy the politicians. From buying the politicians, you take that money and you get your security, your police force. From the security and the police force, you get your media intact. From media, then you get education intact, right? So we have to start looking at everything from every angle and teaching this stuff to our children so that they know the whys and the why nots, right? Why does it make sense to drive an extra 5-10 miles to find a Black-owned establishment instead of giving our money to this establishment that is very convenient for us? Because when you do that, you're taking money that you're taking profits from them that they use as a weapon to continue to feed the white supremacy and racism machine that is aimed directly at us. We've got to get this, right? A lot of times we just don't teach that from a very fundamental level, and that's got to change. That's got to change. So let's start looking at how we manipulate and how we move, right? You guys, this one, because this is one that I got from my man George C. Frazier. I did get a chance to meet him when he was here in St. Louis once. But I want you guys to think about this. Now, I have sons that play basketball, right? And they're looking to get scholarships to play on the next level and play in college. And then in the St. Louis metro area, we have for class of 2018, we might have 10 or 15 basketball players that are in the ESPN top 100, right? We have 10 or 15 basketball players in class of 2018 that are in the ESPN top 100. And what Dr. Frazier says is that money follows talent. What do you guys think would happen? We're talking about group economics here, and we're talking about making sacrifices for the group and not just looking at things that will benefit you individually or your family individually. What if all of our top Black athletes all went to HBCUs? Instead of the best and brightest of our talent going to play football at Penn State and allowing them to create a 100,000 seat stadium that is packed for 16 weeks of the year, which funds all of the other programs at that so-called prestigious university, what if all of our top athletes went to a HBCU? And if it is true that money follows talent, what would happen if all of that talent was evenly dispersed there and those schools start creating powerhouse rivalries with some of the best talent on the planet like they used to have 100 years ago? You think the HBCU conferences could get a couple TV contracts if all the best talent were at HBCUs? You think they can get more alumni support if they had that kind of talent and they were selling out stadiums? You think they could potentially build a 100,000 seat stadium where even at $10 a seat for people to fall into the game and watch a game, HBCU can make $1 million on ticket sales alone every week? That don't even count concessions. That don't count the TV contracts. That don't count the endorsements with, come on, because you got to know that somebody's going to endorse the team, right? Somebody wants their logo on the uniform or the best. See, we have to start thinking differently if we're going to start behaving differently in order to get some different results. We have to think differently in order to start behaving differently so that we can get some different results. See, what a lot of people think that schools integrated because because it was the right thing to do, right? A lot of people think that white people in power finally came to the realization that Black people are human and we should be integrating these schools because that is the humane thing to do. That's not why, y'all. That's not why. The real driving force for integration was the fact that mainstream culture wanted to tap into our genius. The real driving force behind mainstream culture integration of the schools is so they could tap into Black genius. See, we were in one room schools where we were forced to practice group economics. We were in one room schools and we had one or two teachers that taught grades 1 through 12. And we were still producing geniuses. One of the reasons that they integrated is so they can tap into that genius. How in the hell can they continue to produce these super leaders, these super intellects in one room schools with hand-me-down books that they're sharing with no resources? If we integrate the schools, we can start to pluck out and identify the Condoleezza Rices of their community. We can start integrating and plucking out the Colin Powells of the world, the Barack Obamas of the world. See, we have to start thinking differently so we can start acting and behaving differently so we can get some different results. Group economics starts at home. What are you teaching your children about group economics? Have you thought about what your family business is going to be? And are you getting your kids involved and prepped now? See, other cultures, because they know where they want to go and where they want to be 100 years from now, they're starting to indoctrinate their children now. We're taught, on the other hand, to give our children freedom of thought, let them make their own choices. And no, man, no. Where we messing up at? We have to start putting into our children what we want to get out of them when they're 30 years old. This is the family business. This is the family legacy. This is what we did. This is where we're doing. This is what we're doing. So we have to start conditioning them when they're young that no, you're not going to away to school. You're going to school locally and you're going to stay on the family property and we're going to help you save some money. So when you get your first job, you don't have to worry about trying to get a mortgage. You get your first job. You don't go out and get a car note. We have to start thinking differently so we can do differently, so we can have different results. We have to start thinking longer term, right? Start thinking longer term. I got a family that I coach, right? The big family. You guys know Mikey has been on the show a couple times, a kid who knows the biz, best-selling author. You guys know his mom has a nonprofit organization. But because they saw in him his ambition to be an entrepreneur, they bought him a couple vending machines, right? Now they start working the vending machine business. Now that has just become the family business. That's the family business. So Mikey runs the machines. They just bought the little baby. She's 2 years old. She's got her own gumball machine. What are you doing to create a family legacy of entrepreneurs? What are you doing to condition your children in a certain way? Right? We're talking to my sons all the time. Yeah, you're playing ball, and yeah, you're gonna go to college and play ball, but what is your business going to be? Right? My son printed out a form today. He's taking orders for a personalized cell phone cases. Got him a personalized cell phone case, got a little basketball on it, got his name on it. Everybody's asking, man, where you get that from? And because he's my son, first thought came to his mind is, I don't tell them where I got it from. I tell them they can order it from me. I tell them they can order it from me. So now he's taking orders because he's thinking like an entrepreneur, right? So what are you doing to change the culture in your household? Is the culture of your household going to be that you're going to continue to raise your children the way you were raised so that you get the same results that your parents got with you, and when your children are your age, they will have exactly what you have right now? Question is, do you want that for your children? That's it, Robert. You see, I talk to my children to let them reach a conclusion by way of me asking them questions. You can guide them to what you want them to know, and teach them to think at the same time using this method. Absolutely. Absolutely. And see that some people don't some people think it's wrong to manipulate your children or to indoctrinate your children in that way, but they send their children to school every day to get indoctrinated. They think it's wrong to do that themselves, but they send their kids out into a community. That's all the community does, is indoctrinate your children. But you have no indoctrination yourself to counterbalance all of the, I almost said something that my wife wouldn't approve of. You don't have anything that you are doing to counterbalance the mind raping that's going on of your children, but you don't want to indoctrinate them, right? You want to indoctrinate them for entrepreneurship and success because you think money is evil, but it's okay for them to go to school and be indoctrinated about colonialism, the flag, and the greatness of America, and put slavery behind you. Learn our history, not your history, but you don't have a counterbalance in your house. There's no culture in your house that says, no, here's what this family is going to represent. This is why group economics is important to this family. Starting with our group, we're going to take all of the money. So you got a job, son, you got a job, daughter, you made 50 cents at school selling candy. We're going to take all of this money and we're going to keep pooling these resources, and we're going to show you what happens when you do that. And when you create that culture of, hey, everybody in this house is making sacrifices for X, Y, Z. And when you can do that and you show them the benefits of it and that it works, then they will go out into the community and they'll start practicing on a bigger scale, a bigger level. So we've got to start thinking differently, so we behave differently, so we get different results. Group economics it starts at home, right? Don't let your children take their money outside of the household before you sit down with them and decide with them what needs to happen with that money. You have to teach them how this stuff works. You can't just let them come to these conclusions on their own. Like Robert said, you ask question after question after question to help them come to certain conclusions, right? Give them a little bit of rope, but you don't let them go too far. And you say, you know what? Instead of moving out of the community because there's no supermarket, son, you love to play in the garden. Let's start you really understanding how to grow food on a massive level so that you can put a grocery store in this community. Right? This is what we have to start doing. If we're not thinking differently, we're not going to behave differently, and you cannot get different results, y'all. We cannot get different results, right? What we're taught is to go buy this big old single family house and We're going to raise this family in this big single family house, right? We're going to spend a lot of money so that our children can have their own room and all of this kind of stuff. But that money is just going. When that same money could be used to leverage to buy an asset that will serve to benefit you a little bit greater down the road. Right? So group economics, the reason we can't get it together from a group economic standpoint is because we were divided in our own homes. That's why we can't get it together. That's why we don't practice group economics. We never practice, we didn't even practice group economics in our own houses. And that's got to change. That's got to change. We start practicing group economics in our own houses with our own immediate family, right? I have my brother lives in Jackson, Mississippi. All three of my sisters live in Tupelo, Mississippi. So imagine if we were in this place right now. I want you guys to follow me with this. So if we had been taught, instead of scattering out like that, we've been taught to practice group economics. And my mom was wise enough to have this 8-unit apartment complex, right? So now we all live and are raising our families in this 8-unit apartment complex. See, I have 2 nephews that I barely know because they live in Jackson, Mississippi. I see them once every 2 years or so, right? I have another nephew that I see a little bit more often, but he lives in Tupelo. I have nieces I barely know, they live in Tupelo. Imagine how close our family would be if we all lived in this same 8-unit apartment complex. Imagine the help that we could provide for one another. You talk about a village. Now, all of us are grown, all of us are adults, all of us are working. But if that was the case, by this time in our lives, if our parents would have done that while we were young, at this time in our lives, we will own that property outright. So that means we all get to live rent-free. So we all get to live and save $1,000 per month. It's 5 of us, 5 families. We all get to live and save $1,000 a month. What would it look like if the 5 families were taking that $1,000 a month and we were pooling that? We were pooling that. The money that we would have been paying for rent, we're using that for a family business. We're using that for putting $2,000 a month into an investment account, getting 14% rate of return. That literally turns into $1 billion in 3 generations. That literally, I've done the math. Literally in 3 generations, we're worth billions if we just did that. Now, not only the financial ramifications, but now because we're all together, we get to pool our talent. And we're looking at, okay, you got a job, but you're really good at this, sis. So let's start looking at ways to turn that into income. And we have this property, right? So all of us are together. So when you get off work and you need time to work on some projects because you're building your own business, then all of the kids come upstairs to my apartment and I'm going to teach them their own history. I'm going to teach them finance. So while you're building your own business in your apartment, send the kids up to my apartment for a couple hours, and I'm going to be teaching them what I do in my business, which is financial education, tax minimization, investing, how to become an entrepreneur, how to use the internet, how to grow their social media pages and start getting paid from Instagram and all that kind of stuff. See, man. I have brothers in Jackson and a lot of family in Tupelo. Okay, cool. So do you see how we missed the opportunity because we've been taught to get up, get out, and go do our own thing? We create this individualistic mindset and not the village mindset. I'm telling you right now, if all of my brothers and sisters and their children We're living under one roof. Now, not under one roof as cramped in one house, but under one roof as in all in the same apartment building, different apartments. This is our whole family deal. This is our deal right here. The amount of collective intellect, right? The collective consciousness that we would be fostering, the ability to create a culture and define a culture of what we want our family to be and represent. That's what's missing, guys. That's what's missing. Now we're together, right? I'd be able to tap into the gifts and talents of my nephews. And I'd be able to identify that stuff and really help them hone in on my brother would be able to look at my sons from the outside looking in and say, hey, bro, you missing it with this one. This one needs to be going this direction. I see something in them that you don't see because you're with them. Man, let me take him under my wing for a couple months and let me, cultivate what I see in him. Okay, brother, it's all good. Sister saying, look, you're missing it. This one right here should probably be modeling somewhere. Let me take him under my wing and let me cultivate him. This one loves music. This one loves the art. This one is a great critical thinker. That's my wheelhouse. Let me cultivate that and bring that out of him. We're missing it. We're missing it. We're missing it because we've got that individualistic mindset because that's what this world teaches. If we're going to have something different, we got to think different so we can behave different so we can get different results. So now I've got work to do because all of my children have been raised with the individualistic mindset. But now at 43, I'm starting to see that, man, I taught y'all wrong. Now I got to go back and flip it and get them to buy in so we can come back together and piece this thing together. So it's very true. As a second generation Indian, when growing up here, my parents who came here from India would, let me see what this one says. When I hear my parents who came here from India would get upset with me when I would buy them gifts as a young child, right? Partly due to their ignorance of American culture, but I didn't understand it when I got older, but they were teaching me not to be wasteful. Yeah, the culture was always money from the household. They're retired now. My brother and I now own multiple companies, right? See, there's a culture that we're not putting into our households. There's a culture that we're missing, right? People are too caught up in personal achievements. Yeah, I believe in family achievement, think generational. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we're missing it. We're missing it. Older people in our culture meet with relatives, children in the family. They give them an envelope with a small gift, whether they're rich or poor. It's old generation sharing power, which is, well, it's a different mindset, and we have to start building and creating those that culture. We have to create that. We're missing that. We are adopting everyone else's culture that's not working for us. And we have to say, you know what? If we want a different result tomorrow, we have to start today to change that. So I'm gonna pull my sons together. We're gonna have a family meeting. And this ain't gonna be the first, I'm sure. I'm sure we're gonna have 1,000 of them jokers to recondition their mindset to say, you know what? We're stronger together. We're stronger together. And I apologize if I did anything that made you feel like you needed to be on your own. We're stronger together. And that's what we got to start doing. And then from the group economic standpoint, just imagine if we did that, our whole family was in this 8-unit apartment complex and we all loving on one another. We became this tight-knit bunch. And then we run across another family doing the exact same thing. We have our culture tight. We have our belief system. We're doing what we're doing. Now we can partner with another family who's equally as centered, grounded, and cultured. They have their resources together because they've been practicing group economics. Now it's very easy for us to come together and practice group economics because we got 20 years of experience practicing group economics. We've been practicing group economics in our households for 40 years. So now when it's time to go in the community and practice group economics, we all know what it is, what it's about, and how to do it. And we all respect one another because we've been doing it. So I've been respecting my sister who's in the field of psychology. So I've been respecting and trusting her with my children to help her keep us mentally grounded and straight. Right. So now when we introduce to another family who's got another set of skills, then I know how to lean on them for that set of skills. And I know how to accept what they bring to the table. They know how to accept what we bring to the table, and we don't clash. Guys, we got to start getting this, man. Group economics start in the home first. But we got to get out of this individual mindset and start thinking family, start thinking village. Because if family is a cornerstone of nation and all of the families are individuals, then that's why we have a nation of individuals. But if family is a cornerstone of nation and we really truly start becoming family, I'm talking about with our blood family. A lot of us not even family with our blood family. But we start becoming family with our blood family. And we give others permission to do the same thing. Then we can start becoming family with our neighbors. You start putting a solid family together and you move another solid family next door. Now they become neighbors. When you get enough neighbors in one general vicinity, you get a neighborhood, right? And when you get a neighborhood, the neighbors in that hood start thinking, hey, we need a grocery store. So they'll put a grocery store on the main street in that hood, in that neighborhood. And they say, hey, we need a bank. So then the neighbors put a bank inside that neighborhood so that they can do the bank. So they put the bank on the main street in that neighborhood. And they say, you know what? We need security. So they create the fire department and the police department on the main street in their neighborhood, right? And you build from there. But if everybody is hell-bent on doing their own thing, we'll never aggregate our spending power. We'll never buy and own our own communities where we shop and where we live. It'll never happen. We'll never become producers, right? Every other culture on the planet produces everything that they consume, except us. Did y'all hear that? Every other culture on the planet produces the things that they consume. Every other culture produces their own clothes. Every other culture produces their own food. Every other culture produces their own shelter. Every other culture produces their own safety, security. Every other culture but us. Every other culture but us. We send our kids to school to become doctors, but not so they can come back to our communities and build a hospital. Because they don't have the village mentality, they have the individual mentality. We send our kids to school to become lawyers, but they don't go to school to become lawyers to come back to our community to get the law to work for us. They go to school to become lawyers with an individualistic mentality because lawyers make a lot of money and they want to make a lot of money and they want to go work for a law firm or start their own practice somewhere else. Right? We don't We send our kids to school to be engineers, not so they can come back to our community and build the roads and the highways and the bridges when we buy this raw land and we need to turn it into a community. That's not why they're going to school to become engineers. And the reason they're not is because they're not being conditioned to do that, because we're not practicing group economics in the home. When we're practicing group economics in the home and we feel and we start to find the need and feel it, and we say, hey, son, this community would benefit greatly from a supermarket. And your son has a passion for gardening. Your son has a passion for people and community. Okay, well, we're going to send you to school. And all while you're going to school to learn how to run a business, so you can build a so you're learning agriculture, so you can grow food on a mass scale. You're working at the supermarket, so you can learn the ins and outs of the supermarket. At the same time, you're going to school to get official study and running business, so that you can come back and build a supermarket right here. We got to change the way we think, so we can change our behavior, so we can get some different results. So just my thoughts on generational wealth, group economics starting at home. There's a lot of things that we got to stop complaining about the things that we don't have, and start more so taking advantage of what we do have and focusing on that, right? Stop looking at the problems, because when you talk only about the problems, you make the problems ginormous. And when a problem appears ginormous in your mind, you won't make any efforts to change it. But when you focus on the solutions, you make the solutions ginormous and the problems begin to shrink. And now you're more willing to attack the problems because they appear small in your mind, and you feel that you can overcome any challenge to solve that problem. That's what we have to start doing. So really quickly, guys, if you are a business owner and you want to get your business brand in front of thousands, then I want you to consider sponsoring the show. All you have to do is inbox me, and I will give you the details on what a sponsorship package would look like. And that helps me continue to do what I do. So you can sponsor the show, get your name shouted out in one of our different segments, get your name and banner on my fan page, get your name and banner on my website, all of that good stuff. So if you're trying to find some low-cost advertising solutions, then sponsoring the show can get your name in front of tens of thousands of people. My reach is growing by the day. So just inbox me. And if you want more details on that, I can put together something for you. And we can come to some terms on how to really work together. And you can support me in doing the work that I do. And then I can help you grow your business by shouting you out on the show and, giving you space on my fan page and all that good stuff. So I'm Ace Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the Black community. Until I talk to you guys tomorrow, I want you to get your money up, because you absolutely can do it. But more importantly, you deserve it. Peace out, y'all.